Hey there, nerds. Jimmy here.
And I'm James from 2 Minutes in the Future. Oh, it's been 2 minutes. Never mind.
So I caught up to you?
Yeah.
Excellent. So, that might give you a little hint on what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Totally Killer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 12 Monkeys.
Yes.
Aww.
No. So, Amazon Prime released a film that was goofy in its marketing and stuff called Totally Killer. And just on a whim, I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. Let's see. That was a lot of fun.
It was a fun movie. Now, did it release in theaters?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I saw it advertised on Amazon Prime. I found it on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it was in theaters at all.
Audience, if you know, tell us in the comments below, and please be nice about it.
As a side note, most times award potential films get the theater release just so they could be up for the Oscars and stuff.
Yeah.
I have no thoughts that this was ever going up for an award, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
it is a lot of fun. It does handle time travel, which is what kind of originally turned me off because it's going back to the 80s. I grew up in the 80s. I'm not the biggest fan of the 80s because I lived it, and I'm like, yeah, I know what it was. I hated the clothes. The music, all the music wasn't my favorite.
Politics.
But what they did was, it was phenomenal. And I'm watching this going, oh my God, yeah, a lot of those things I grew up with were horrible.
Oh my God.
Like, it's hilarious. There's one point where Asian Jim, I forgot his name.
We have to remember.
I know, he's from WandaVision. He's like
let me
in
look it up.
Ant-Man 3 or Ant-Man 2. He's awesome. But he's sitting there as a cop with his fellow cop, and they're just smoking. And the girl from the future comes back, and she's trying to talk to them, and they're like blowing smoke in her face and just smoking everywhere. There's another mom that drives her somewhere, and she's smoking in the car, and she gets out big smoke everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot that's exactly what life really was like, in that there was a lot of people who smoked, and it was always in your face, and it stunk. And as a kid, I hated it.
His name is Randall Park.
You think I'd remember that? Randall Park.
I know.
Fresh off the boat.
He's an incredible actor.
He is. I love him. He's hilarious. And he's hilarious in this.
Oh, so freaking brilliant. He's a scuzzy cop, and it's just perfect.
Well, he's not a scuzzy cop. He's a 1980s small town cop.
That's right, which is
So he's not trying to be
worse.
nefarious. He's not. There's like one point, the girl comes in and is like, oh, I wiped up some blood from the scene. So we have DNA. And he's like, DMA? We'll just put it in the DMA database and throws it away.
As a science history buff, DNA sequencing didn't exist until the late 90s. So it's even funnier to know that it's like that technology wasn't even comprehensible at that point. So it's like, it's genius that she thought of it, but at the same time, it's like, that doesn't exist yet. You can't sequence his DNA and match it yet.
So we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. It's a horror film set in a small town in Vernon, where in 1987, 3 girls were murdered, stabbed 16 times. So it was called the Sweet 16 Murders because it all happened on their 16th birthday. Whew, that's a mouthful. And we're basically shown the events of that through models and recreation from a podcaster who then leads a tour of the scenes because it happened right around Halloween. Is that the summation of the first 5 minutes?
Yeah, pretty much.
And the people on the tour are wearing the same mask that the killer wore, which I thought was that's creepy as all
Yeah, that's
hell.
not unsettling.
And to me, the mask, I have no idea what the idea for the mask was, but to me, it looks like Max Headroom came to life with an earring. And I'm like, that's what I thought when I first saw it.
I said Ginger George Michael.
So it's so weird. But then we're introduced to our characters. It's the mom from Modern Family is in it. And the girl, I'm sorry, I forgot names, from Sabrina, Teen Witch or whatever that was on Netflix.
Sabrina Teenage Witch.
Not Mary Joan Hart or whatever her name. What's Joan Hart? Not her. The other one.
Gotcha.
The more recent one. And they show us a mother-daughter scenario that is very tense. And it honestly reminded me of Halloween, the newer ones,
very much
where the mom, at some point in her life, obviously, we don't know yet, but at some point in her life, obviously was in fear of her life. And we find out she was friends with the girls that was killed and has forced her daughter to be trained in martial arts and all this stuff so that she won't be in danger. So there's this tension there, and it's Halloween night. So the daughter is seeing her mom and dad dress up in Halloween outfits and is kind of like, oh, gosh, mom and dad. So events lead us to her best friend, and there are a lot of stretches in reality in this, and I don't care. Like a lot of plot holes when it comes to time. Like her best friend created a time machine out of a photo booth.
To which I say, how in the hell did a teenager in the modern era manage to get the necessary components to do so? Because we don't know how to make time travel, but we can assume a lot of the basic components. You need a particle accelerator. Where the hell did she get a particle accelerator?
Or do we know how to time travel? So she goes back in time. And now she's stuck in 1987 when her mom was in high school. These 3 girls are alive. The Sweet 16 killer has not happened yet. And she still has some of the technology from the future, i.e., her cell phone, her Apple phone, which cracks me up. So she is trying to wade her way through how the 1980s works. And it's hilarious because she says she's from Canada and everybody just immediately believes it. She enrolls in school and she's like, well, do I need a parent signature? And they're like, no, honey, you're fine. Just go to class. She shows up in gym class and they're like, here's your outfit. And she puts it on. It's like super short shorts and tight shirt.
That scene is not historically accurate only because the men's shorts were like down here.
Yeah,
I did not live back then. He did. Shorts were like up to here for guys. Go watch American basketball back then.
And it cracked me up because I'm watching this going, holy shit, that's hilarious. She walks into the school and there's a Native American on the side, and I'm from Cleveland, so I grew up with Chief Wahoo, and that's exactly what it looked like. And she's like, "Oh,
it looked modeled after Chief Wahoo,"
and I'm just sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, these are all things I grew up with and just accepted because that's the way it was." And to basically be shown that again as an adult, woo, wow, are we messed up?
And it doesn't help that they're called the Red Devils, which is a heavily no-no, big no.
But what I did love was that we've seen a lot of time travel movies recently, interdimensional, all those sorts of things. What I loved was she brings up Back to the Future. And the mom of her best friend is at the same high school. So she reaches out to her because she thinks, well, maybe she'll know about time travel. And what's great is she does, because she's got the same notebook that her daughter had, and it was actually her notebook. And she's seen Back to the Future and is totally believing in everything she says. So there's no like, you're crazy. She's just like, yeah, let's find a solution and we'll get there.
And my father and I's first comment when we watched that scene was, yeah, that'd be us. Someone would time travel back in time and be like, okay, cool. And I love the way what is her name, the main protagonist? Jamie. I love the way Jamie understands the basics of time travel and uses it to her advantage. One of the biggest ones is that there are pictures of her in the past and she leaves a note for the people in the future on how to finish the time machine. And it's super fun seeing how it's someone who has now seen all these classic time travel movies and knows how to play with that time travel stuff, work it into a plot about, oh God, the 80s were awful.
Well, and that was a funny part too, because again, growing up in the 80s, Dungeons and Dragons was seen as this cult thing that could just destroy your kids and they could become brainwashed. Well, they thought this note that she wrote was a rune.
It's a J.
And that the rock and roll star who was in the high school with him, was accused of the original murder, had put a rune, and it was this code for something else. I'm like, that was totally 80s, and that's not what it was. It was just a note.
Yeah. And what was his band's original name?
I can't remember his band's original name, but the daughter was interested in him in her current original timeline. But after the first murder, which happened in a waterbed, the singer recalled it a waterbed away, one waterbed away.
A waterbed away.
So that in the future, you see the poster for his latest concert, and it's no longer whatever the original name was. Now it's a waterbed away.
And I love little things like that. Like bootstrap paradoxes are fun in movies, but they kind of break the concept of time travel if it's like Back to the Future time travel. That was funny though, and I love little bits like that, like the Twin Pines becoming Lone Pine, stuff like that. It's all sorts of genius because you get to see those little things. It's like, oh, that changed and crap like that. And I do like the way they explained away the discrepancies in history with the Mandela effect. I don't care for the Mandela effect being used as a time travel based concept, but it worked. It worked.
I loved it because then we get to the future and we have the podcaster who has pictures of the actual event, but then he also has notes that, well, this took place in the garage, but now all of a sudden it took place in the parents' bedroom and the waterbed. And he has a picture of Jamie in the past, but clearly she's not from the past because she's from the present. And the best friend explains it away of, oh, there's a theory that the Mandela effect is just a memory from a time that did exist but was changed, and you're remembering the way it was, but that's not the way it is anymore.
Very much so. And
Being an
now-
old man, I love that idea because I forget shit all the time.
He's going and there's no way we can stop it.
The other one I liked was Jamie in the past was like, oh my God, if I ruin my parents' relationship, am I going to just disappear? And the mom of the best friend was like, no. You'll just sort of exist outside of time and you'll be lost. And it was like, I don't know which is worse. Disappearing or being this weirdo who's just like, I've got nothing to tie me to anything.
I'd rather disappear because existing without nothing sounds like torture. And I love the fact that the logic is just put together enough to not betray itself.
Mm-hmm.
Now that the waterbed has become the crime scene and not what was the garage, there's all sorts of butterfly effects, and now things are constantly changing. And that's where this gets really fun because now Jamie's premonition, she claims she's a psychic, have no way any whatsoever. So then she's like, let's avoid the cabin scenario. They go to the cabin. Shocker,
Well,
I know.
We're going to go, what is it, a timeshare, a condo? We're going to go to the condo. And the ditzy girl's like, oh my God, I guess it is a cabin in the middle of nowhere. It's like, that's where horror films happen, woman. Are you kidding me?
And what's great is that they are all blitzed out of their minds, but the sequence in which who gets killed completely changes because the person who's supposed to be killed last gets killed second. And so now it's a whole thing, and we get to my favorite scene in the whole thing. Jamie goes into the weird dude's van, and he says, what? He was listening to Meatloaf.
That's what my son got from this. I liked other 80s references like Jamie claims she's a psychic. And it's just believable. Like, nobody doubts it. She pulls out a stone and is like, here's my psychic stone.
She's got an amethyst. And they're just like, okay.
Looks real. And it's like, that's like, I grew up watching Miami Vice. There was a seriously horrible, stupid episode where it was all about psychics. And that was not abnormal. That's what they, like, literally, psychics. Are you kidding me?
I mean, let's be fair. Uri Geller was really popular at the time. So people would have just been like, okay.
So they just believe it. I love that. And then one of the other ones I love is when she goes to her mom's house because her mom believes that she's a psychic and needs to listen to her. Finds out she's a sci-fi nerd. And they're watching RoboCop. And I just lost it. I'm like, all these VHS tapes that had been recorded, they weren't like originals. They had been...
Yeah, and you got Tron. Thank you for referencing that.
So the story is great. You do have some other references, like she mentions at one time, oh, maybe it's a Scream scenario where there's two killers. And they're all like, what?
That
like,
ain't out yet.
That hasn't been released yet. Never mind. You have a lot of funny jokes in that aspect. You have a lot of funny things that literally were the 80s.
I drive best when I'm drunk.
Oh,
No, you don't.
yes, exactly. He's trying to say women are just bad drivers and he's drives better when he's drunk. And she's like, I assure you, you do not. A lot of sexual jokes that you're just like, that is so inappropriate. One of my favorite ones was one of the girls gets high and she made pop brownies and everybody else is high. And Jamie is like not affected at all. And she pulls out this bag of weeds and dirt. She's like, see, if you want to roll a doobie, you can have another one. She's like, what is this? It's all like dirt and leaves. Like, I could get you a gummy that's like this big that could be way more effective. It's like, yeah, that's what I grew up with. That's funny. That's sad but funny.
To get back on track before we lose ourselves again, this is spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. It is such a fun watch. Now that the events of the killings have been completely upended, there's no guarantee anything will go the way it went. And so now, with the final killing where it's supposed to take place at some boardwalk fair or something, Jamie now has an issue. She has to stop the killings and get back to the present. So they come up with a genius plan to stop the killings by luring the dude into a fun house and killing him there. And it's actually pretty well executed in the way that it's like they managed to get him there, they all gang up on him. And I love the fact that the daughter of Randall Park's character, the small town cop, is dressed as a Grim Reaper and has an actual functioning scythe, and she just uses it correctly to kill him. She does the whole upside down through the chest, and it's like, oh my god, she knows how to actually use a scythe. That's not terrifying.
Well, and everybody else is like, oh my god, that's real? She's like, of course it is. My dad gave it to me. And it's like,
and then she pulls out a gun, and she's like, my daddy also gave me this. And it's like,
it's
what?
literally the 80s. The only thing that would have been funnier is if it was 70s, 60s, whatever. It's all true. All the same.
Oh, yeah.
All the same. So we get back to the present day. Time has changed. One of the funnier things that I think happened was Jamie sitting there with her best friend and her mom made a journal of everything that potentially changed because she doesn't know exactly. And she hasn't gotten to read it yet. And all of a sudden, this good-looking dude comes up, and you can see Jamie's kind of like, oh, hey, whatever. Turns out it's her brother because her parents did get together earlier in high school now, and now she has an older brother that she never had before. His name is Jamie, and now her name is Colette.
Worst trade-off in all of time travel. Worst trade-off. But we did forget one crucial part.
What's that?
She was right. It was a Scream scenario.
That is true.
But not in the way that you think. And I think this was brilliantly written as much as it was a little last-minute reveal. I love the fact that the initial killer was the dude who was dating Trish, and then there's this whole thing that she died because everybody was a jerk, and that the reason Pam wasn't initially killed was because she wasn't a part of that group of three that caused Trish to get killed. So when you realize that, you realize the modern killer's MO does not agree with the original killer's MO, and that it has to be someone else. And I love the fact that it's the crime podcaster whose dad treated him like garbage, and he's trying to get a Pulitzer Award, and he went back in time to fix everything, and then he gets probably killed in the most brutal way possible.
Well, and he killed his dad.
Oh, yeah.
So the older version of the podcaster killed his younger version of his dad before he got his Pulitzers.
And then that traumatizes what would be the modern version to not become a jackass. And it's just like all these things at the end that kind of line up perfectly. And it's so funny to watch.
So we highly recommend checking out Totally Killer on Amazon Prime. It's just a fun watch. Yes, you can try and break down the science involved in time travel, whatever. Who cares? It was just fun.
And if you have seen it, give us your review in the comments below.